This is the Student Voice. I am Brandon Watson. In America, 1 in 5 children struggle with hunger and neglectful living conditions. Among these numbers, it is rare for even a few to break through and thrive as adults from these desperate origins. Yet, one young man from the Chattanooga area has proven that hard work and dedication can lead one from this real and vicious struggle so many face day to day. Joining me in the studio today is Fredrick Davis and Ann Cater, the producer of his WTCI documentary, From the Streets to the Stage, The Journey of Fredrick Davis. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us, Ann Cater and I, and we're glad to be here today.
Fredrick, tell me about growing up in Chattanooga. What was it like for you?
What I remember growing up in Chattanooga, it was never easy. Living with my mom, and her being a single parent, raising me, living in East Lake, growing up, going to boys clubs for recreations, and going to school. And dance wasn't part of my life. I was trying to figure out where I wanted to be in my life and try to decide how I was going to decide my future and how I was going to be, just being an inspiration, being an idol with people around me. And at that time I was doing sports and trying to figure out where I wanted to be in my life. I knew I wanted to be back in New York because my mom told me stories of being in New York City, living in Manhattan, but I knew that I want to be back where I was. But Chattanooga taught me so much, and how to, the Southern living, the comfort and the people, how to treat others and being surrounded around the environment. And even though Chattanooga was much different than it was then, and now seeing where it's been after being in New York for 12 years, I always loved to come back. I mean, I've been overseas, traveling, dancing with the great legendary Dance Their Home with, the founder, Arthur Mitchell. He is the artistic director emeritus of Dance Their Home now. Virginia Johnson runs the company, and Keith Saunders is the ballet master. They've basically expanded my mind as an artist, and also being, a visionary for a lot of people, being a dancer the way I am. So when I come back now, not only I'm a native from Chattanooga, Tennessee, I also represent being, the artist that I am, representing, even also being a Chattanooga native, also being a professional dancer, coming back to be as an artist.
So Fredrick, growing up where you did, getting into dance, culturally, there had to have been some sort of pushback or contention amongst your peers. How did you handle that when you were growing up?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I never really told a lot of people what I did because I knew I would always be teased for it. But I would say, when I was, even before I got in dance, I was always teased because I had a path and where I wanted to go in my life, and I thought about my future because I was living a tough time, not having food, or not having, a mother figure being there for me, giving me, the innocent, a good guidance to be, a good inspiration. So I just never told anyone. I kept my path. I mean, of course I got teased, gotten a lot of fights for it, because I always want to be different. And I just, my goals were perseverance, and just I really thought about my future and what I wanted at the end of the line.
So what really gave you that inspiration, that for perseverance and to drive? Was it just kind of there and you just watched how other people were interacting, or did you have a figure that you could have latched onto, a positive influence in your life at that time?
My influence was I was always told by my mother. She used to tell me stories when I was a kid, when I was living out on the streets and I didn't have anything. She would always tell me stories before I went to sleep. She said, I was from a great city. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I didn't have much of a past of my, I didn't have much of a past. I didn't have a memory because I was taken from that when I was 4. Mm. And that was basically my drive, was to get back to New York City. I mean, I didn't know how I was going to get there. I mean, I thought sports was going to be the way, but it ended up turning out to be dance because the ballet career, because that got me there. Because at the time, I didn't have the money to afford to get into football, because you had to have a physical, a health thing to get into the sports. I couldn't afford that. So Barry and Anna gave me a full scholarship, and that completed my way to make the dream happen. So New York was
the destination. That was where you were going.
So that was my future. That kept me in a positive light, because there were there was a lot of dark times I could have felt the other way, but
just gave up. Right.
But that was New York was my hometown, being in Brooklyn, and also my father. At that time, I never met my father at all.
He was still in New York then.
Yes.
And it's like that was also added inspiration to get there.
Because I used to always have visions of how my father looked like, but I never did. So that was like the drive.
Wow. And how did you when did it dawn on you to do a story about this kid, like, the documentary? What?
Well, I think it was an awareness that came over me over time, because I did meet him when he was younger, and I observed him. I would go to a lot of his performances and Ballet Tennessee performances, and I watched him, and then I watched his career. He went to CCA, and then he got a scholarship to Joffrey Ballet, and I watched him go to New York, and I watched him in that realm, and I understood a lot about his struggles there. He's not telling you a lot of things that happened to him there, but it was extremely, extremely difficult for him to achieve what he has done today. Is extraordinary considering what he had worked against him. I mean, he having to waitress and work and sleep with the Joffrey Ballet. They took him in. People everywhere have taken him in and lifted him up at moments, and so it was such a compelling story. It had all these. His character certainly, and his talent and his drive, but additionally it had, the love and support of a lot of really caring people that have made a difference in his life. So I thought the story was exquisite that way. It had so many little, what I call sidebars to it. And it's really one of those extremely compelling stories that has the potential to have tremendous, outreach for social change and to motivate young kids like him, for example. We're at the premiere screening at the Tivoli on Monday. Youth and Family Development, for example, is busing in all the kids from the rec center to see the film.
Wow.
Because they're using the documentary as a motivation for them. So they can, if he made it, then maybe they can.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it has that tremendous outreach and social implications. And certainly he's broken a lot of barriers.
Of course, yeah. Just the small promo that I had read, it just spoke volumes. This is a question for both of y'all. Since you started your dance, you started touring around the world and everything else like that, and making this documentary, have you since reconnected with your mom? Hey, this is who I am, and your family, and your dad? Did you find your dad?
Yes, yes, I did. When he actually came, this was at the time when I was still training here with Ballet Tennessee. My father came down, he flew down, and I saw my dad for the first time. And there was like steps in my life I had to do before things transcended the way they are now. I saw my dad for the first time, not seeing him since I was 4. And that was a huge moment because, seeing him, talking with him, basically just getting the touch of my past and not knowing, because I did not know that part when I was living in Brooklyn when I was younger. And from there, I graduated from high school. That was the next big step, because by then my grandmother passed, and that was another undertaking in my life with her not being there. Once she passed, and living with John and Kim, living in Tennessee, and then graduating from high school, and then making the big change to move to New York City. The church also did a fund for Evie Lavinia did for my grandmother after her passing.
Oh, okay.
And they, supported me when I was in New York City. And from there, I decided to stay in New York City from there, because I was already home, and then went to the school, and Joffrey Ballet School took me in, and at some point I started living with my father, and I lived in the school. I stayed in the school for like 5 months, working as a waiter, bartender, also washing dishes at some point. I would say like the first 10 years living in New York was tough.
Right.
Living from place to place, not having a place to stay, and just working jobs. And
was there any conflict between relearning who your father is, because he was a stranger, and then?
Yeah, there were conflicts. We made things work, but eventually I wanted to, breach it on my own and, make the career happen, just make the career happen for myself, and just living in New York, learning its curves and stuff and that stuff. And living in New York, because I had work experience here in Chattanooga, but the experience there is not the same as New York. So trying to get a job that would pay my bills, pay my rent, was a struggle. Just living from check to check, paying my bills. I worked 3 jobs. I worked as a waiter, dishwasher, and also worked as a salesman. And also worked in the catering.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Through it.
Yeah, that's just, at that point you don't have a choice, because that's just the way of living. I didn't have anyone to support me. So
Yeah, you kind of do it on your own. Now, and is the documentary focused primarily on Chattanooga, or does it cover his time in New York and his full circle back to the?
It really is. It's a snapshot of his life, and it talks a lot about his career in New York and what's happened to him with the Dance Through Harlem and international places he's performed. Even this year, he's been all over the world dancing on the world stages. Wow. And then, of course, we do talk about his beginnings here. So we do talk about the help that he received with the Parks and Rec, which is now Youth and Family Development, his scholarship with Ballet Tennessee, his scholarship at CCA, his help with the church. So it's the whole story of his life, and it's told from his viewpoint. He actually is he's the center of that. So we don't have a narrator in it. It's not a narrator.
Okay, so the voice is completely his and organic too. Huh?
Yeah. So we've interviewed people really all over. A lot of people in New York. I've interviewed Virginia Johnson, artistic director presently at Dance Theater of Harlem, and some other people that along his way. So it's a synopsis of his life.
So, closing statements. You got a young Chattanooga boy looking to do something for himself, or girl. What would you have to say to him, Fredrick? Like, what kind of inspiration could you impart?
I would say, always think of your dreams. Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Just always believe in yourself, and always have a goal. Always have a goal and have a vision. Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Wow. If someone tell you what you can do, prove them wrong, and say, I can do this. It's always I can, never I can't.
What do you got going on in the future? You got a big journey going on. It sounds like it's still going.
It's it's now I work as a freelancer now and stuff. I'm talking with a lot of places overseas as well as in the national. I'm looking to choreograph in Israel, Santiago, Dominican Republic. Wow. And I'm also talking with a school in New Zealand to go teach with them recently, and just basically connecting with a lot of people. I have a major tour happening right now, going from October 24th all the way to, I would say, December 21st. And that's touching in cities in Virginia, Tennessee, Atlanta,
You're just touring all over.
That's awesome. Basically, there's a major tour happening, and so just basically just keep pushing with that. I'm actually choreographing a ballet, which is 21 minutes in Dominican Republic. So that's
wow. Big things in the work. Please, we want to follow you around. We want to we want to be on your journey. Now we know about you. We don't want to let you go. And great having you on. We look forward to seeing this. Grateful for your visit here today. We look forward to seeing you again. Please check in with us, guys. This is just an amazing story. Don't forget to catch the free broadcast premiere September 24th at 8 p.m. on WTCI. This has been The Student Voice, and stay awesome, Chattanooga.